Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. Hey, wine lovers, foodies, travelers, and fellow explorers. Welcome back to another episode of Pour and Explore, the podcast where we uncork stories from around the world, one glass at a time. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, certified sommelier, food fanatic, karaoke regular, and a laid-back wine guy with a passion for people, places, and pouring the good stuff. I know this is the Pour and Explore podcast, and wine is my jam. You know, we've talked about coffee, we've talked about cigars, we've talked about a lot of different things. Wine is my jam, but today I would love to pour a little something different. Today's guest brings the hops, brings the heat, and a whole lot of heart. Joining me today on this episode is none other than Chef Philly Dee. He's a guy who's brewed beer, cooked food, owned businesses, and podcasted his way through life with serious flavor and serious soul. Philly Dee is the kind of guy who can break down the brewing science, cook up street tacos that'll make your abuelita proud, and then drop a movie quote that'll have you cracking up or questioning your childhood, one or the other. Philly was born in Spain. He was raised in a Mexican barrio outside of LA, and now he's holding things down in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, an old haunting ground of mine, and we'll talk a little bit about that during the show. He is the culinary and creative force behind Round Guys Brewing out there in Pennsylvania. It's one of the standout craft breweries in the Philadelphia suburbs. And not only does he help run the operation, but he also used a chef up in the kitchen there. And spoiler alert, there is some next level beer and barbecue fusion talk coming up in this episode. But that's not all. Philly is also the co-host of a wild and wonderful podcast that you've got to check out called I'm Telling You, which has started as a casual conversation between two lifelong friends, Philly and his buddy, and it evolved into a full-on production and moreover a creative playground, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. You know, they take their opportunity on the air to wax poetic around about everything from metaphysics to movies to UFOs. That's a conversation for a little bit later, and entrepreneurship, and trust me, it is a trip. Philly's the kind of guy who's equal parts hustle, humor, and heart. You know, he really brings a realness to everything he does. I was really lucky to meet him, of all places, on Facebook on a podcast forum. I reached out to him just because I loved his vibe and everything about him, and we connected, and it's really going to be a great episode. So I really hope you enjoyed it. You know, it's going to be a great conversation, and if that's what you're looking for, you are in the right place. I do these interview episodes every other week, so if you're looking for great conversation about food, about wine, about beer, about travel, about cigars, about anything, you know, in that realm, this is the place you want to be. I'll remind you at the end of the episode, make sure you like and subscribe when you come in and watch the episode today. I would very much appreciate that. And we are going to answer the age-old question today we get about Philadelphians, as I am one. Is it Pat's or Geno's? The answer will be coming up in just a little bit, so stay tuned. So pour yourself a cold one or a glass of wine. You know, I'm not judging you. Sit back and let's dive in with Philly Dee. All right, Philly, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you being with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you reached out and told me what you were about, I checked into you and I was like, heck yeah, this is the kind of guy I want to talk with.
I love that, and I thought the same thing about you, so I really appreciate you coming on the show. And well, why don't we start off? I gave you a little bit of intro, but why don't you tell the listeners about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I guess 30-second elevator pitch. Born in Spain, raised in a Mexican barrio outside of Los Angeles, been on the East Coast since I was about 13. Super hustler, entrepreneurial type. I've had automotive businesses, I've had restaurants. I currently run a craft brewery out of Lansdale in Pennsylvania. So yeah, just a business type who loves crunching numbers because I'm a nerd.
One of the things that really got me excited about this conversation is we kind of have lived a very similar life, but kind of backwards. I grew up in Philadelphia. I actually lived in Lansdale at one point in time in my late teens, early 20s. I had a little apartment over there, and I moved to the San Diego area about 6 years ago after living in California for about 20 years. But my heart still. I still bleed green. I still love my Philadelphia Eagles. Go Birds! So I'm super excited to have a chat with you. Let's start with one of my favorite topics: beer. I am the wine guy, but I love beer. Absolutely. Tell us about the brewery that you're working with.
Well, we're about to turn 13 years old, which for craft brewery, a pretty amazing feat in and of itself. We've had a crazy journey going from our brewmaster, head founder, literally quitting his day job, took all of his savings, his entire retirement. He took all of it, dumped it all into this. So we went from like this small little brewery trying to make it, opened a pub, got really well on doing that. Kind of through the whole, pandemic and all that crap, we had to reshuffle and figure ourselves out, which we kind of came across happenstance is that we're really good at making beer and getting it to people. So I
Mhm.
switched us into more of a contract kind of a style. But yeah, I've been with them for about 10 years. I started as a consulting chef, wound up having a restaurant with them because, again, I do have that background. But yeah, we're at a place now where we're actually transitioning into just being a brewery. So we're doing a lot of contract work, a little bit of distribution, but only because those accounts were our originals and we love them. So we're just going to keep them. But yeah, we mostly make beer for everybody else now.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. And what's the name of the brewery?
Round Guys Brewing, like big fat round belly guys,
Yeah.
which I used to be one when I had the restaurant. You're working long hours, you drink a few beers, it doesn't really do anything until all of a sudden you just like look down a couple months later, you're like, well, where'd that gut come from? So without the
Guilty.
restaurant, I'm not drinking. Yeah, no, it's I kind of slimmed down a little bit, so now I'm just a guy brewing, I guess. I don't know.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of day jobs, I know a lot of people think, that being in the wine industry, being in the beer industry, your day is full of, slosh drinking, day drinking. Besides that, what are some misconceptions about working in the beer industry that you can think of?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Honestly, that's it's still a business. There's still numbers. Myself as the director of sales and operations, I still have budgets. I still have to put out projections. I still have to watch my costs, and it's still a business. We're still dealing with people. So it doesn't matter what the industry is. Yeah, we do get some beers here and there, but it's usually because we're trying it and making sure quality control. But yeah, it's still a business.
Yeah, I hear you. Bottom lines and taxes and all that stuff. It's I feel like I just started my LLC after many years, for this business and the wine guy business. I can't even tell you how much goes into it, especially here in California. You've got the whole bureaucrat thing on top of everything else. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk a little bit about the brewing side of your business. You talk about having to taste and things like that. Are you guys into experimentation? And tell me some of your favorites, maybe some fails. Yeah, give us some fun stuff.
Yeah, we so oddly enough, we started as a German Belgian only brewery, but
Hmm.
there's not a huge market for that. And our brewmaster, he's a five-time Great American Beer Fest judge and was a judge before a brewer, so he knew what it had to be and just had to learn how to do it basically. But in doing that, he has been very emphatic about we will never make an IPA. It's the dumbest beer in the world. It's literally like making tea at warm temperature. That's all it is. So we swore we would never do it. However, fast forward 13 years almost later, our top 4 sellers are all IPAs. But yeah, we do. His biggest thing is he was a tier 3 judge, so we got into barrel aging and doing like barrel aged sours. So you're talking like Brettanomycin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely love the idea of being able to experiment, and we'll do it within the recipe that's traditional, but maybe change out some of the ingredients, kind of give them different profiles. So I mean, we let our brewer, because we have a head brewer now. Our brew master just kind of make sure he's doing his thing, but our head brewer is phenomenal, so he gets to play around a lot. We get to make some really cool, fun stuff. Probably the coolest beer I think we've ever made was a farmhouse ale saison done in a tequila barrel. So it was aged for I think about 9 months until it really soaked in. Threw a little bit of real lime and a touch of salt to it, and it's a phenomenal beer. It just drinks really well. But I'm also a tequila guy, but I like balance, and so it had balance after aging. But yeah, biggest failure. And I'm sure there's plenty of brewers that have done this before, especially when we first started. We were in a really tight, confined space. So there's hoses everywhere and levers everywhere. And you're trying to make your beer and you're really stressed because, you're stretched thin on money. We wind up making a really good batch of lager, which was like our #1 seller. It's called Lansdale lager because it's meant for our town. And I'm in the kitchen working it at one point, and our brewmaster comes in with the saddest look on his face. And I'm like, oh crap, the batch is bad. No, worse than that. He flipped 2 valves the wrong way. And instead of transferring from the kettle into, getting it all, he wound up actually hitting it into the drain. And you're talking hundreds of gallons dumped.
No.
He ain't getting it back. So it's like you just lost that batch, and we were behind the 8 ball on it. We should have had that batch done like 2 days prior. And it's just like, so
mishaps and oof. I hate to be that guy on that day of the week. Most definitely. IPAs, obviously here in Southern in California in general, West Coast are very, very popular, very, very trendy. We've got tons of brewers that are doing a lot of really fun things, with IPAs. Coming from Philadelphia, I was always a Yingling guy. If you're listening and you're from that side of the country, you'll know all about Yingling. But I've slowly turned into an IPA guy a little bit. I'll admit that. So, but we've got some really fun beers and some small guys really producing some very, very cool stuff over here in San Diego. I'm a food guy. You're a food guy. Let's talk a little bit about beer and food. If you were to choose an ultimate food pairing for one of your beers to go with some great food, what do you think that would be?
Currently, because we do have a new chef in-house, we're in the middle of finishing the transition where he's literally taking over the entire front of house, back of house, everything. So he's going to do the whole pub, and we're just going to supply him the beer. But him moving in wanted to make sure he was paying homage back to the brewery, because it is a brewery pub. He took our honey wheat ale with blood orange, which is basically like a Blue Moon type, a wit or a white, but we don't use the wit yeast, so you're not getting that champagne-y brightness with it. It's a little bit harder because it is the honey wheat ale, but real blood orange. So he took that and wanted to make it into some kind of a sauce, wound up turning it into a Memphis-style barbecue, which is our #1. Yeah, it's our #1 sauce sales-wise for his wings, which his wings, by the way, by himself, those things are amazing. But then you add in that little bit of tanginess coming from that sauce, and it drinks well with the beer, let alone anything else we have on tap. But just as a wing with that kind of a sauce, it turned out amazing.
Yeah, it sounds really, really good. I'm a huge Memphis barbecue fan, and I can only imagine how yummy that is. Well, obviously, if you live anywhere in the city of Philadelphia or the surrounding areas, as a listener, Lansdale is just a short, maybe 20, 30-minute ride outside Northeast Philadelphia. It's an easy little trek, so definitely recommend that you go visit Round Guys out there. And speaking of visitors, if someone's visiting Philly from around the country or around the world, give me your top 3 places they should visit besides Round Guys.
If you're in our specific area, Lansdale, one of the bigger ones is Free Will out of Percy. They're a little bit older than us. They have a really awesome barrel aging program. They make some pretty cool sours, which I'm not into, but the beers themselves are made pretty well. So they're pretty big. They almost like set the bar coming into the area. But we also have Well Crafted. They're almost 7 years old, I think. Their original location is a half a block from us. They just purchased another building, I think about a year and a half ago, down in Ambler as well. So they have 2 locations. And I mean, those of us in the industry know that once you get to that 5-year mark, you start to make some pretty decent stuff. So to get to that 6 or 7, it's like, all right, you definitely got to be making some stuff. And they're a lot like us because we make the beers from scratch. We want to make the food from scratch, and they give you that same kind of experience, very much family friendly and all that. And so those 2 are pretty good. There's also Artifacts. Artifacts is pretty awesome. They've been around a little bit longer than Well Crafted, and they have more. Actually, they're very much like a garage band style, and it's literal because when you go to their establishment, they have a garage door that rolls up and a giant parking lot. So they don't even have like a dining room or anything. It's literally a parking lot. So you get that like garage, kind of feel, and that's pretty cool. And they make some pretty good beers. We've collabed with them a couple times, come up with some fun stuff. So there's a ton of breweries in this area, though.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Of course, I would be remiss without talking about Philadelphia and the surrounding area with asking the Philly guy, what's your favorite cheesesteak?
Oh, see, you know what? People kind of hate me because, well, I mean, there's to me, it was always Jim's because it was down on South Street, and that was just like a cool spot to hang out. So I never really got into the whole like Gino's Pat going back and forth, which I mean, everybody will say is the epitome and has been for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I was never really one to like go search out the cheesesteak. So if I'm in Philly, it's typically I'm somewhere around like the South Street area. So it's like, you know what, I'm gonna go get Jim's. It's they make a damn good steak. You can't complain.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I get, especially traveling the world, I hear it all. Oh, Philadelphia, cheesesteaks, Pat's or Geno's. The answer is no. I stop them in the middle of their sentence. Sorry, Pat, sorry, Geno's, but you are not the epitome of cheesesteaks in the city of Philadelphia. And I absolutely concur. Jim's sadly burnt down a few years ago. Then they rebuilt. They've got a locate, or at least they did have a location up in the Northeast as well. I don't know if they do anymore, but Jim's is just simple and easy, and you get everything you want and nothing you don't. And it's a really, really good steak. Absolutely agree. All right, cool. Let's transition a little bit. Besides all of the fun that you have on the food side and, of course, the beer side, you also have a really super awesome podcast called I'm Telling You.
So really what it started as, I've been as a chef doing a bunch of different stuff, in closing my last restaurant and just before the pandemic hit, literally 2 weeks prior. So we got out with our butts intact, which is very rare in the industry, but we literally left with money in our pocket. I was still helping out the parent company, which is the company I run now, because we were limited on staff. We were pulling back our one restaurant. We had another location that was also going to have to close. So we're shuffling and moving stuff around. I did a thing as a chef where I was literally making street tacos on the street. Because I mean, I'm born in Spain, raised in California. I was raised in abuelita's kitchen around the corner. Like the little grandma from the block taught me how to make salsa verde and salsa roja and like all those kinds of things. So I was doing this taco show and also having to do our social media from the restaurant prior to that. So I got used to just being in front of the camera. I got to a place where I started making those shows and was just like, I feel like this is my thing. Like I'm supposed to be in the limelight of some sort. I started to traverse into being more of a public figure, which is where I went to my best friend of 30 plus years. We've always had really awesome conversations as kids because we've just always been very inquisitive in our nature, very innocent like that. So we love that, and why? Well, why that? And why this? And we want to keep going. Well, I came to him because we always have these great conversations and so much hilarity in it. I said, hey, let's record us just talking. Because really what I wanted to do was go back and go over the actual recording, pick out those little jokes or those nuances and turn those into kind of like sketch comedy in a sense.
All right. Love it.
I was using it as kind of like research, a spitball and stuff, but just coming off the hip. Well, come to find out as we were doing tests of those, we kind of just realized the conversation itself is a thing. So then it's like, well, then you know what? Let's just try doing that. So we instantly shifted into doing more of like a radio show because this is going back about almost 5 years. So for us, radio was still a thing coming from our generation. So we're like, let's do it as a radio show and kind of just started doing that. I had a friend or I still have a friend, but we were on his internet radio station doing our talk show, as we called it, because it wasn't really a podcast. But then as we kind of got into it more and more, then all of a sudden we added video, we got better mics, good soundboards, all the editing equipment, blah, blah, blah. and it just evolved itself back into a, from a talk show into a podcast. But there's so many of those out there that we kind of still want to differentiate ourselves and see us as more of like a talk show, because it's a show about talking. It's a couple of people in a room having deep conversations. That's basically what a talk show is, especially when you bring on guests, because we love doing guests, typically local people, business people, just those who are out there on the grind and just making the world a better place. We wanted to do it at that point because we love the idea of having a raw, organic conversation and wanted to put that out to the world. Like, hey, if we were all just willing to have these open, unemotional conversations where it's just, let's talk about things, we could resolve a lot of stuff. We could figure a lot of things out. A lot of us could get along a lot better. So
I completely agree. I talk a lot about that on this show. The more you're able to travel, the more different types of people that you get to talk to and understand them as a human being, as a person, as a different person, than you. The world is absolutely a better place. I couldn't agree with that more. So, on the show, you talk about a lot of different things. I mean, movies, metaphysics, and everything in between. What do you think the most off the wall episode you've ever done?
I would say probably our oddest, like, out there. So at one point, about a year and a half ago, we had just finished recording an episode and my buddy left and I was just hanging out. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning because we were just recording really, really late. And I just kind of wanted to hang out outside, look at the stars, and just, kind of decompress from recording for a good session. I saw something in the sky, and I'm not going to call it a UFO, even though that's what it would be deemed, because it was unidentifiable. It was, in fact, flying and an object. But, I saw something and it kind of freaked me out, and not like a scared freaked out, but like, oh crap, did I actually just see that? Did that really just happen? Is this a real thing? So I called, my buddy at that point at like 1:30 in the morning. He had just gotten home and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I think I just saw something. Da, 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 da. Following week, we come in and he's like, all right, we got an elephant in the room. You think you saw some shit, go. And I basically start to attempt to explain my experience to the best of my knowledge, again, without going, it's little green men, because I don't know what it was. But I can definitely tell you it wasn't an airplane. It wasn't a helicopter. There was no noise. It was this weird white object. It had no kind of biological human bird, something like it just, there was something about it that I'm like, I don't know what the heck that is, but I had an experience of some sort. And we wound up talking about that for a good hour and a half almost.
Well, that one sounds fascinating. I definitely want to listen to that one. So we'll scroll through the podcast and catch that one. Speaking of which, again, the podcast that Philly and I are talking about is called "I'm Telling You." It's going to be available on Apple. I think you're available on YouTube as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were on like Apple and Spotify and all that, which, I mean, some of our older episodes, audio only, are still there. All the newer stuff we've been doing for the past 2 years is video. So all the new stuff is YouTube only, unfortunately. But we really wanted to hone our craft. So we kind of shrunk everything down instead of trying to spread us out everywhere.
Go check out I'm Telling You on YouTube. Great place to do that. And for the earlier episodes, head over to Apple and definitely subscribe to that, and check out some of the earlier stuff too. You obviously have a following. People are listening to the show. That's why you keep doing it, beyond just having great conversations with great people. But give us some feedback. Tell us what people are talking about. Maybe any funny comments, any interesting comments that you've gotten about the show.
You know what? I'll tell you what, I got two that are really awesome and kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum. The first one, which is our absolute favorite from when we originally started almost 5 years ago, the one compliment we got on a continuous basis was, I'm listening to your show and I'm really enjoying it. And I get caught up into the spot where I start yelling at you guys. And halfway through, I realize they can't hear me. So we would get people to have such a visceral response and feel as they were like in the room, a part of the conversation, that they literally had to speak out. And they're just like, I'm by myself. What the hell? So we thought that was a really good thing. Because I mean, that's, again, we want to make that conversation. We want people to do that. So the fact that we're doing it, like, all right, we're on to something here. But the other end of the spectrum, the coolest thing we ever had was our first hater, our first person to send us a "what the hell is wrong with you guys" kind of a thing. Long story short is, he basically, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but stated that we were two moronic midlifers waxing symposiums. And we're like, Actually, that's accurate. We're gonna
We're going to use that as the tagline for our podcast.
yeah, it's kind of a running joke because we'll go back and forth and every now and again on an episode we'll get into it. Be like, what are we doing? Waxing symposiums over here? Oh, geez, But yeah, that's what we do. So we were like, all right, you were hating on us, but he's not wrong.
That is very, very funny. Love that. All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping up here in a few minutes, but, I thought of this question and I would love to hear your answer. If your podcast was a drinking game, you know where I'm going with this. What's something that you say that would get someone absolutely loaded?
Yeah, odd enough, and that's why I started to chuckle on that pretty well. We actually already do.
Okay.
At least we hope we do. We've hypothesized that this thing exists so much to the point that we literally turned it into a drinking game, and then we've done 2 episodes with it where we invited friends to come and do it with us. And it's like, hey, these are the rules for the game. This is what we're doing. But yeah, we do a lot of movie quotes. So my buddy and I, my co-host, Mr. Gemini, being, kids from our generation, being movie people, we literally speak in movie to each other. So we can have conversations just going movie quote back and forth, and not from the same movies or the same genre. It's just we can get a kind of continuous flow. So the idea is every time we make a movie quote, which on the average episode of 45 minutes to an hour, there's probably like 12 or 20 different movie quotes. And sometimes they're like subtle ones. Sometimes we actually might, do 3 or 4 lines from it. We put it as every time we do a movie quote, we were gonna, ding, hit a bell or something. And it's just like, that's the cue. But we're like, no, we can't promote belligerent drinking. We can laugh about it. But yeah, when we have some of our guests that come in, like really close personal friends, we will bring the drinking game out and play in house. And we usually record that beforehand so you can see us getting there. Then we'll record an actual I'm telling you to see where we're at after.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. The I'm telling you drinking game hitting the shelves summer of 2025. All right. So we talked about all the great stuff that you've done, all the great stuff that you're doing. What's next for the show, for the brewery? We'd love to hear what you're up to coming up.
Yeah. So brewery, I touched on real quick. We are transitioning to more of a contract brewer, which means we're making a lot of house beers as private labels for bars and restaurants. We're also brewing for others, doing some canning and whatnot for others. So we're really trying to be a part of the industry and keep promoting it and supporting it and, putting some good love out there, which, yeah, same kind of thing with the podcast. We're now at that kind of place. We've been at it for almost 5 years. We've really been learning some stuff, getting into better video, better equipment, better editing. And so we're now starting to continue doing that, but we're starting to build almost a production company because we have a lot of different show ideas. Because again, when we first started, it was like sketch comedy. It's like, hey, let's record this so we can write this down. So we've actually been working on a few different shows that are in production. They're in works. We've been building some scripts, doing some like character studies and, building those up and getting some things to kind of happen in there. But we need to focus on one thing before we can really expand it out. So we're hoping to continue doing the whole podcast thing to get the company really, put its roots down, which you can then transition and start building additional content. And in doing that, we want to build an actual production house. We want to be able to have people come in and it's like, hey, whether you want to do a commercial for yourself or a podcast, or we want to have everything and anything you could want, as well as add the business aspect. If you don't really know what you want to do, but you have an idea of things or you have something to offer, come sit down with us. We can figure out what that is. We can brainstorm. We can put together a business plan for you so you can actually run a model. We can show you numbers. We can, put the whole thing out for you and then pull the trigger if you want. So we're very much about making the world a better place. So, yeah, but if you can get paid doing that, hey, there you go.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not a better gig, than that, and then doing something you love, helping people, educating people, helping them with their business, have fun doing it and make a little money. I mean, goodness, love your life, Philly. Love it. Well, my friend, I really appreciate again you being on. I would definitely love to come visit you next time I'm in town. I had planned on coming to Philadelphia in the summer. I don't think that's going to be happening now. But I will definitely make it a point to get to visit you at some point. You've got so much awesome stuff coming up. If you, as the listener, are in the Philadelphia area and want some of the greatest beer around, go visit Round Guys over in in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. Again, it's just a short drive from Philadelphia, up in the northeast area of Philadelphia. And make sure you listen to the I'm Telling You show. Go to YouTube and subscribe. You smash that subscribe button so you can listen to all of the shenanigans going on with Philly over here and his buddy, Mr. Gemini. Well, my friend, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you real soon.
Thank you, my friend. You do the same. Look forward to it.
What a ride, right? Huge thanks to my Philly guys, Chef Philly Dee. We obviously had a lot to talk about Philadelphia. We didn't quite get to talk about the Eagles, or did we? I can't even remember. It was so much fun. I want to thank Philly for joining us on the episode today. I mean, beer, barbecue, cheesesteaks, podcasting, UFOs. We really did hit all of those notes. If you're anywhere near Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and again, that's just a little suburb right outside of the north end of Philadelphia, going a little bit to the west, definitely worth going out there. Some great restaurants, including what they're doing at Round Guys, and you definitely want to check that out. Again, it's Round Guys Brewing in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. The beer is great, the vibes are real, and if you're lucky, you might catch one of those legendary wings with that blood orange honey wheat beer barbecue sauce. Just saying. And don't forget to check out Philly's podcast. You want to go out on YouTube and check out the newer episodes. If you want to check out some of the older episodes, head over to Apple. That podcast, again, is called I'm Telling You, and it's available, again, on YouTube with full video episodes, and it's really, really cool. It's like hanging out with your funniest friends who happen to be deep, deep thinkers, movie quote masters, and occasional alien sighters. Also, as Philly mentioned, they're building out a full-blown production house to help others bring their own creative ideas to life. So if you're dreaming about starting a podcast and you're in that area, reach out to Philly. His deets are going to be in the show notes, so definitely reach out to him and let him know that you're interested. Get on that wait list, because it's no doubt going to be an amazing place for an amazing people to do amazing things. So definitely check him out. Follow him on Instagram. The podcast, again, is on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for Pour and Explore. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for I'm Telling You. Head over to say hi to him next time you're in the Philadelphia area. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Pour and Explore. I've got some amazing guests coming up, some great stories, travel-ready tastings coming your way real soon. Don't forget about my trip that's coming up in Germany in November. If you have ever wanted to travel to Europe, you need to get out to me and send me a message, send me an email. I would love to get you on that boat going through Northern Europe next November 2nd through the 12th of November 2025. There are spots still available as of the production of this episode, so please hit me up ASAP so I can get you on that boat. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to see some amazing things in Europe, and it's something that you're never going to want to miss. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you go, and if you dug this episode, leave us a little review. I'd really appreciate it, and share it with a friend, and keep that curiosity flowing. Until next time, everyone, keep sipping, keep exploring, and always keep wondering and wondering. Cheers. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, and your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.